The phone was ringing again. I stood in my kitchen, watching it vibrate against the counter, my son's name flashing on the screen. That was the 14th call today, but I didn't answer. I just poured myself another cup of coffee and looked out the window at the garden my husband and I had planted 32 years ago. 3 weeks ago, I would have picked up before the second ring. 3 weeks ago, I still believed my son loved me, but that was before I found the brochure. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Dorothy. I'm 72 years old, and for 41 years, I worked as a registered nurse at St. Michael's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. I married my high school sweetheart, Richard, when I was 23. We bought this house together, raised our son Kevin here, and built a life that I thought would last forever. Richard passed away 6 years ago. Heart attack. He was mowing the lawn on a Saturday morning, and by the time I ran outside, he was already gone. The doctors said it was quick, that he didn't suffer. I'm not sure if that made it easier or harder. What Richard did leave me was security. 40 years of careful saving, a good pension, his life insurance policy, and this house, paid off completely. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. I could travel a little, treat myself to nice dinners, and most importantly, help my family when they needed it. And oh, did they need it. Kevin married Melissa when he was 28. She came from what she liked to call a good family, which I learned early on meant a family with expensive taste and no savings. Melissa had champagne dreams, and somehow, my son had convinced himself he needed to provide them. It started small. A loan here, a gift there. Kevin's car broke down, and I helped with the repair. Melissa wanted to redecorate the living room, and I wrote a check for new furniture. Their first child, Kevin Jr., needed braces, and I covered the cost. Their second child, my granddaughter Sophie, wanted to take dance lessons, and I was happy to pay. But small streams become rivers, and rivers become floods. 6 months after Richard died, Kevin sat me down in my own living room and explained that they were struggling. The economy was tough. Melissa had to cut back her hours at work. The kids were getting older and more expensive. He didn't ask directly. He just painted a picture of desperation and waited for me to offer. And I did. Because that's what mothers do. I started covering their mortgage payment, $4,200 a month, because they'd bought a house bigger than they could afford in a neighborhood fancier than they needed. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself they would get back on their feet. That was 6 years ago. I did the math once. I shouldn't have, but I did. In 6 years, I had given my son and his wife over $300,000, not counting the extras. Not counting Christmas gifts and birthday presents and emergency car repairs and that one time Melissa just had to have a new kitchen because her sister got one. $300,000. I never told anyone. Not my sister in Arizona. Not my friends from church. Not even my doctor when he asked why I seemed stressed during my annual checkup. I just kept writing checks and transferring money and telling myself that family takes care of family. But here's what I didn't understand then. And what I understand now. There's a difference between helping someone stand up and carrying them on your back while they kick you. The first time I felt something was wrong was last Thanksgiving. I had spent 3 days cooking: turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, 2 kinds of pie. I set my dining room table with the good china, the set Richard and I had received as a wedding gift and only used for special occasions. Kevin and Melissa arrived an hour late. No apology, no explanation. They walked in, and Melissa immediately started criticizing the temperature of the house. "It's freezing in here, Dorothy. Don't you turn on your heat?" "I keep it at 68, I said. "It's perfectly comfortable." She rolled her eyes. "Well, some of us didn't grow up during the Depression. I was born in 1953. The Depression ended in 1939, but I didn't correct her. I never corrected her." Dinner was tense. Kevin Jr., who was 19 and still living at home despite having no job and no plans to get one, spent the entire meal on his phone. Melissa complained about the gravy being too thin. Kevin barely spoke, just shoveled food into his mouth like he was in a race. Only Sophie, My 17-year-old granddaughter seemed to appreciate any of it. She complimented the turkey, asked for my stuffing recipe, and helped me clear the dishes afterward, while the others retreated to the living room to watch football. "Grandma," she said quietly as we stood at the sink, "I want you to know that I see you. I see everything you do for us." I almost cried. I should have cried, but I had gotten so used to being invisible that gratitude felt foreign. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said. "That means more than you know." She hugged me then, and I held on a little longer than I should have. Winter passed. I kept paying the mortgage. I kept covering Kevin Jr.'s car insurance even though he'd had 3 accidents in 2 years. I kept sending Melissa money for groceries because apparently feeding a family of 4 required $600 a week. I didn't go to Florida like I'd planned. I didn't take the cruise Richard and I had always talked about. I didn't replace my 15-year-old car or fix the leak in my bathroom or buy new glasses, even though my prescription had changed. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I didn't need those things. I told myself that making my family comfortable was more important than my own comfort. And then came the conversation that changed everything. It was a Sunday in March. Kevin and Melissa had invited themselves over for dinner, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that they arrived with a folder. "Mom," Kevin said as we sat at my kitchen table, "we need to talk about your living situation." "My living situation?" I repeated. "What about it?" Melissa took over. She always took over. "Dorothy," she said in that condescending tone she used when she thought she was being patient with me, "this house is too big for you. You're 72 years old, living alone in a 4-bedroom house. It doesn't make sense." "I've lived here for 32 years, I said. "This is my home." Kevin reached across the table and patted my hand like I was a child. "We know, Mom. But think about it practically. The upkeep, the property taxes, the heating bills. It's too much for one person. We think you should sell." I stared at him. My son, with his receding hairline and soft middle, sitting in the house where I had bandaged his scraped knees and helped him with his homework and celebrated every birthday from 1 to 18. My son, who I had supported for 6 years without complaint, now telling me my home was too much for me. "And what would I do if I sold?" I asked carefully. Melissa smiled, that smile that never reached her eyes. "Well," she said, "we've been looking at some options." She opened the folder and slid a glossy brochure across the table. "Sunset Meadows Senior Living Community." I picked it up. The cover showed smiling elderly people playing cards and doing water aerobics. Inside were pictures of small apartments, communal dining rooms, and scheduled activities like bingo and movie nights. "It's a wonderful facility," Melissa continued. "Very highly rated. They have different levels of care. So, as your needs change, you can transition smoothly." "As my needs change," I repeated. Kevin jumped in. "You wouldn't have to worry about anything, Mom. No more yard work, no more cooking, no more maintaining this big old house. Everything would be taken care of." I looked at my son. I looked at my daughter-in-law. I looked at the brochure advertising a place to put me while they took everything Richard and I had built. "And how much does Sunset Meadows cost?" I asked. Melissa's smile flickered. "Well, that's the thing. It's about $8,000 a month for the independent living units. But if you sold this house, you could easily afford it for years." "I see," I said. "And what would happen to the money from selling the house?" Kevin and Melissa exchanged a glance, the kind of glance that told me they had rehearsed this part. "We thought," Kevin said slowly, "that you could give us the down payment for a new house. We've been looking at a place in Worthington, better schools for Kevin Jr. if he decides to go back to college, more space for Sophie before she leaves for university. You'd be helping the whole family." I sat very still. Something was breaking inside me, but I held it together. I had to hold it together. "So let me understand," I said. "You want me to sell my home of 32 years, move into a senior facility, and give you the profit so you can buy a bigger house. When you put it that way, it sounds bad," Melissa said with a little laugh. "But really, Dorothy, it's what's best for everyone. You're not getting any younger. This house is a burden. We're actually doing you a favor by helping you see that. A favor. The word hung in the air like smoke. I'll think about it, I said. They left that night with promises to send me more information about Sunset Meadows and listings for houses in Worthington. I stood at my front door and watched their car pull out of my driveway, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Richard's old armchair, the one I couldn't bring myself to give away, and I thought about the last 6 years. I thought about every check I'd written, every sacrifice I'd made, every dream I'd postponed. I thought about Melissa's complaints, and Kevin's silences, and Kevin Jr.'s entitlement, and Sophie's quiet gratitude, and I realized something that broke my heart and set me free at the same time. They didn't love me. They loved what I provided. The next morning, I drove to the bank. I sat down with a financial advisor named Marcus, a young man with kind eyes who didn't treat me like I was senile. I asked him to pull up all my accounts, all my automatic transfers, all my scheduled payments. When he showed me the screen, I almost couldn't breathe. There it was, in black and white, every month, like clockwork. The mortgage payment to Kevin's bank, the car insurance for Kevin Jr., the credit card that Melissa used for groceries and shopping and God knows what else, the allowance I sent for extras, the subscription services, the gym memberships, the streaming platforms, 87 automatic payments, 87 ways I was keeping their life afloat while they planned to put me in a home and take my house. Mrs. Patterson, Marcus said gently, are you aware of all these transfers? I am now, I said. We spent 3 hours together. By the time I left, every automatic payment was canceled. Every authorized user was removed. Every financial lifeline I had thrown to my son and his family was cut. I didn't warn them. I know some people might think that was cruel, but I had given them 6 years of warnings, 6 years of opportunities to stand on their own feet, 6 years of chances to treat me like a mother instead of a bank account. They had failed every single one. The first call came 4 days later. It was Melissa, not Kevin. Of course it was Melissa. Dorothy, she said, her voice high and strained. There's been some kind of mistake at the bank. Our mortgage payment didn't go through this month. I need you to call and sort it out. There's no mistake, I said calmly. I stopped the payment. Silence. Then a laugh, like she thought I was joking. What do you mean you stopped the payment? You can't just stop the payment. We count on that payment. I know, I said. You've counted on it for 6 years, but I'm afraid I need that money now, for my own living situation. More silence. I could almost hear her mind working, trying to figure out the angle. Dorothy, she said slowly, if this is about the Sunset Meadows conversation, we were only trying to help. Were you? I asked. Because it seemed to me like you were trying to take my home and warehouse me somewhere convenient so you wouldn't have to think about me anymore. That's not fair, she said. Fair, I repeated. You know what's not fair, Melissa? Paying your mortgage for 6 years while you complain about my gravy, covering your groceries while you roll your eyes at my thermostat, supporting your family while you plan to stick me in a facility and take everything I have. That's what's not fair. She started crying then, or at least making crying sounds. I'd never seen real tears from Melissa. You don't understand, she said. Kevin's hours got cut. Kevin Jr. had an accident. We can't afford the mortgage without your help. Then you'll have to find a way, I said. Like I found a way to raise a son on a nurse's salary while my husband worked 60-hour weeks. Like I found a way to save for 40 years so I could have security in my old age. You'll figure it out, or you won't. But either way, it's not my problem anymore. I hung up. Kevin came to my door that night, alone, for once. Mom, he said, standing on the porch where he used to leave his bicycle as a kid. What's going on? I looked at my son, my only child, the baby I had nursed and rocked and prayed over, the boy I had driven to soccer practice and helped with science projects, the man who had somehow become a stranger. I've decided to take care of myself, I said. For the first time in 6 years, I'm putting myself first. But we need you, he said. No, I said. You need my money. There's a difference. He flinched like I had slapped him. That's not true, he said, but he couldn't look me in the eyes. Kevin, I said, you came to my house with a brochure for a nursing home. You asked me to sell my home and give you the money. You didn't ask how I was feeling about moving. You didn't ask if I was happy here. You didn't ask anything about me at all. You just saw an opportunity to get more money, and you took it. We were trying to help, he said weakly. You were trying to help yourselves, I said. And I let you, for far too long. But that's over now. So what? He said, his voice turning hard. You're just cutting us off? After everything we've been through together? Everything we've been through, I repeated. Kevin, what have we been through together? Because from where I'm standing, I've been going through things alone while you've been going through my bank account. He didn't have an answer for that. I need you to leave, I said. And I need you to understand that I love you. I will always love you. But I can't help you anymore. Not like this. Not until you learn to stand on your own and treat me like your mother instead of your ATM. He left. He didn't say goodbye. The next few weeks were hard. Melissa called constantly, cycling between tears and threats. Kevin Jr. sent me angry text messages about how I was ruining their lives. Kevin himself went silent, which hurt more than the yelling. But through it all, there was Sophie. She came to visit me one Saturday afternoon, alone, on a bus because she didn't have her own car. Grandma, she said as we sat in my living room drinking tea, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about all of it. You have nothing to be sorry for, I said. But I do, she said. I knew what they were like. I knew how they treated you. And I didn't say anything because I was scared. You're 17, I said. You're not responsible for your parents. She shook her head. You deserve better than how they treated you. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not what you can give. I started to cry then. Real tears, not like Melissa's performance. Sophie, I said, you're the only one who ever made me feel seen. She moved to sit beside me, and I held my granddaughter like I had when she was small, like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because she was. 3 months later, I visited my lawyer. I had some changes to make. Richard and I had created our wills years ago, leaving everything to Kevin as our only child. It had seemed natural then, simple, but nothing about this situation was simple anymore. I sat in Mr. Hartwell's office and explained what had happened. The years of support, the brochure, the demands, the silence. He listened without judgment, then asked me what I wanted to do. I want to protect my assets, I said. I want to make sure that when I'm gone, my money goes to someone who actually loves me, someone who sees me as a person, not a piggy bank. We talked for 2 hours. When I left, I had a new will. The house would be sold after my death, and the proceeds, along with my savings and investments, would go into a trust for Sophie. She would receive it when she turned 25, with conditions about completing her education and maintaining employment. Kevin was not disinherited entirely. I couldn't bring myself to do that. He would receive exactly what he had given me over the past 6 years, exactly what he had contributed to my well-being, my happiness, my care. $1. Melissa and Kevin Jr. would receive nothing. I know some people might think I'm being vindictive. Maybe I am, but I think of it differently. I think of it as finally telling the truth. For 6 years, I pretended that my son loved me while he treated me like a convenience. For 6 years, I funded my own erasure from his life. No more pretending. It's been 8 months since I canceled those payments. 8 months since I chose myself. Kevin and Melissa had to sell their big house in the fancy neighborhood. They moved to an apartment on the other side of Columbus. Kevin Jr. finally got a job at a warehouse, though Melissa complains about it constantly on Facebook. Kevin is still silent, but I hear through Sophie that he's started going to therapy. Maybe that will help. Maybe it won't. Sophie graduated high school last spring. I was there in the front row, cheering louder than anyone. She's starting at Ohio State in the fall, and I've set up a fund for her tuition that has nothing to do with the inheritance. I want to help her while I'm alive, while I can see her smile, while I can tell her I'm proud. As for me, I'm still in my house. My 4-bedroom house that's supposedly too big for one person. I've fixed the bathroom leak. I've bought new glasses. I'm planning a trip to Florida next month, and maybe that cruise Richard and I always dreamed about. I'm 72 years old, and I'm finally living. Sometimes I sit in Richard's armchair and talk to him like he's still here. I tell him about Sophie's college plans and my garden and the new recipe I tried. I tell him about Kevin, about what went wrong, about whether I could have done something differently. I don't think I could have. I think some people are takers, and some people are givers, and sometimes love isn't enough to bridge that gap. I gave everything I had for 6 years, and they wanted more. They would always want more. The phone rang again yesterday. Kevin's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. His message was short. Hey, Mom. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I know I messed up. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know that I'm trying to do better. Maybe we could get coffee sometime. Just talk. I miss you. I listened to it 3 times. Then I saved it. I don't know if I'll call him back. I don't know if this is real change or just another angle to get something from me. 6 years of disappointment have made me cautious. But I do know this. Whatever happens next, it will be on my terms. I will never again set myself on fire to keep someone else warm. I will never again give until there's nothing left. I will never again mistake being used for being loved. I am Dorothy Patterson. I am 72 years old. I survived 41 years as a nurse, 50 years as a wife, and 6 years as a bank account. And I'm finally free. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, if you're giving and never getting anything back, I want you to know something important. It's not too late. It's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to set boundaries. It's never too late to demand respect. You might lose people when you do. You might lose people you thought you couldn't live without. But here's the truth I learned the hard way. You can live without people who don't value you. What you can't live without is your own self-respect. So if you're standing where I was standing, staring at the bank statements and the unanswered texts and the endless demands, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me years ago. You are worth more than what you provide. You deserve love that isn't conditional on your generosity. You have the right to say no, to say enough, to say this ends now. It might be the hardest thing you ever do, but you can do it. I know because I did. And if you found something helpful in my story, maybe hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because none of us should have to figure this out alone. Thank you for listening. This is Dorothy from Ellie's Stories, reminding you that you matter. You really, really matter.